Hi, I'm Eileen Roche, founder of Designs and Machine Embroidery, and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching the rebroadcast, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it, and I hope that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and, of course, like us on Facebook so you can be notified when we have upcoming events. And hi, Judy from West Virginia. It is hot here in Texas, too. I'm sure all over the country. And they're talking about a big storm on the East Coast. So I don't know how bad that will affect many of our viewers. So hi, Terry Freeman. Thanks for joining us. Great to have everybody here today. So make sure you pipe in. Let us know where you are joining us from. We have Barbara Giddings, your first time viewer from Sun City, Hilton Head, South Carolina. Boy, that's a pretty place for sure. I've had some lovely vacations there. Just beautiful. Janet Mills from Bakersfield, California. Oh, man, it's just great to have all you folks here. Thank you for joining us. And Kathy Winks, you're in Everett, Washington. Well, it's early out there, right? Welcome. Thanks for joining us. And Ms. Pauline from London in the UK. Well, welcome. It's really great to have everybody here. Today, I'm going to share some of those dime doors that we've been finding out on the web. And, you know, if you're participating, if you're making the dime door and you're not posting it on Facebook, we can't find you. We would love to share it with all the other viewers because everybody does a little different take on the doors, which makes it just fabulous. That was always our intention, was to have people, you know, put their own stamp on it and just, you know, explore and stretch their embroidery skills. Hi, Bonnie. Nice to have you joining us. And Julie in South Dakota, it's great to have you here also. Okay, so maybe I should switch over to PowerPoint so we can share, take a look at what some other people have been doing. And if I showed some of these last week, well, that's okay, right? Maybe you missed the show last week. So this beautiful image on the left-hand side is from Sharon Crean, and she added some words, surf. She added the word surfs to her surfboard, and instead of a traditional life ring on the left-hand side, she took out the red and the white colors and added blue and gray, which I think looks really great. And on the right-hand side, we have a polka-dotted surfboard. Super fun. I really like that. And I love the plaid door. Really great. Lots of color in her example, Krista MacArthur on the right-hand side. Just beautiful. On Donnie Howard, she added some fussy placement of her fabric on her surfboard. She got her vertical stripes going just right. And look at the fabric that she chose for the view inside the door. It's stunning. She has like sand. It has a marbled effect. It may even have some grass in it. And then her water, it looks very watery. It looks really great. And of course, the sky too. And then on the right-hand side, we have Alicia Gentry, who did a beautiful job. And I love the little crab. And she has a daiquiri on the porch, which is a great idea at the beach, right? We have lots of people jumping in from sunny Florida. I know that Dora, she joined us on. There's my sister, Marie Zeno. Hey, sister, good to have you here. If you remember, Marie joined us last week. That was a lot of fun to have her on. My stitching sister. And here we have Nancy Eggleton. I love her both of these surfboards. Just fabulous, right? Really floral, really fun. You know, there's movement in that print. I love that. They both look great. So we have Nancy Eggleton on the left-hand side and then Joan Fyan. And, you know, if I'm mispronouncing your name, please forgive me. It is not on purpose. You know, when these names come up, I just take a stab at it. You never know what's going to come out, right? Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Candy Bray, she has scissors on her surfboard. How fun is that? Again, I'm not quite sure if that's embroidered or if that's fussy cut fabric. Either way, it's really attractive. Looks just terrific. And Sarah Jones, I did show this last week, but I just thought it was so interesting. You know, she's not a beach person apparently, but she has this fun playhouse in her backyard. So she mimicked that and used colors that kind of show what her playhouse is on the right-hand side, and then added a beach ball and a terry cloth towel, which I thought was really very, very nice. And hi to Roxana from Mojave, California, and Bonnie in Naples. Beautiful place, Naples, Florida. Absolutely gorgeous. Tina Thompson, again, another floral surfboard. This time she went with a very pretty color-washed batik for the view out her door. Looks really nice, and it's set off by that bright pink or red door. Really beautiful work. And Mona Smith, bold yellow. I love that. Boy, isn't that just outstanding? If you're walking down the beach, you wouldn't miss that surf shack, right? It just really pops out at you. Wonderful choice of fabric. And Alicia Gentry, I know I pointed this out last week. She digitized her scene, you know, and it looks like her ocean. It really looks like water and the foam, you know, cascading across the sand. Looks very lovely. And of course, she also added palm trees and a sailboat. She got seagulls. She even has a sun in the sky. And Jen Leo, she says that she likes the real terry cloth idea. I thought that was great too. Very, very nice. But let's not forget here, Alicia also added cork to the roof. That very well. Lisa Granley on the left-hand side with her bright neon bright green surfboard. Love that. And again, look at the placement of that fabric for the cabin and for the, you know, the shack. She has vertical lines going up. Looks really, really nice. And also she has some, her stitching, that's part of the embroidery design, that horizontal stitching works very well with her vertical print. Muriel Butler, she did an outstanding job. This is a completely different take, I think, on the shack. She's added some interesting touches, and we're going to take a close-up look on the next slide. So instead of having pennants across the top, she has filled in those areas with scallops. So now it in my mind, kind of looks like a circus tent, but I know in some beach communities, you do see shacks like this, you know, kind of more like a tent with that red and white stripe. And I love the pennant flag that she has flying on top of her shack. It's adorable. And who wouldn't want a star-filled surfboard? Really lovely. Great examples of this month. I think that I've read kind of across Facebook that people really felt that the July door was the best. And, you know, maybe so. I really loved it. I poured my heart into it. Of course, I do all of them. But this one seemed to lend itself to more personalization for one reason or the other. You could play with the view. You could play with things on the porch. You could also play, like Muriel did, with changing that pennant to a scallop. Now, what does it take to do that? Well, it takes software for sure. But, you know, once you have software, it's then just up to you to explore and stretch your skills. And you don't have to do that, but if you do, you can really come up with some very unique creations like these July doors. So what are we going to do next? Well, next we are going to talk about hooping hats on a single needle machine, stretching your stabilizer stash, and then some decorative stitches with specialty thread. You know, not just embroidery. I actually sat down at my sewing machine and did some regular sewing, and I know you all like to do that too. Oh, Debbie is joining from St. Croix. Hello, Debbie. Nice to have you here. St. Croix, beautiful island in the U.S., in the Caribbean, U.S. Virgin Islands. All right, I'm heading over to camera 2 so you can see what's up with the single hat. Okay, so I have my sticky hoop and I have hoop clip attached to the frame. So let's take a look at how that works. Hoop clip is a magnetic, has magnets on the bottom, and it literally just snaps to the metal frame of sticky hoop or snap hoop monster, you know, same metal frame. And then you just place the bill underneath that clip, and it's just really an extra hand to hold that in place while you stitch. You most certainly want to print a template of your embroidery design. Make sure you have a vertical crosshair, and you're going to align that vertical crosshair with the center seam of the cap. And you know, a cap has the bill and then the crown. The crown usually has eyelets around each of the segments of the hat, and they're for ventilation. And then in the back, it also has an opening. So in this 5x7 hoop, I can stitch not only a design on the front, but I can also stitch one on the back. So after this is embroidered, I would just smooth this down in place and position my back template right on that seam. I want to make sure that that vertical line is aligned with the seam. And notice that I arced my text to mimic the arch of that opening on the back of the hat. And in one hooping, I can get both designs stitched. So I'm going to go ahead and move that aside and show you how then I would patch. Now this is a same kind of setup, but this time, here, I need to flip this around for you, I guess. This time I'm in a 6x10 hoop, and it doesn't matter if I'm in a 6x10 hoop or not, or the 5x7. But after you stitch this, you would carefully tear this off, and I have already cut a hole just to mimic how it would tear away. And then, I don't want to throw away this whole piece of stabilizer, right? I could take this off and remove the hat. And then I just cut a piece of stabilizer and I separate it, remove that protective paper. Now here's the sticky part, and I'm going to place that underneath my hoop. And here's a little tip. You can fold under a corner to stick it to the bottom surface, your hoop mat or your cutting mat, whatever you're working on, maybe. It won't stick to the silicone. How about that? Okay. And oh my goodness. Okay, so then we just finger press or place our hoop over it. Then I take that extra paper that I just removed and I put it back on top and rub that in place. And then when I remove that, I have a completely patched stabilizer. I don't have to throw this whole thing away, but we always want to make sure that we're patching from the hoop. And then if you did turn those corners over into dog ears, make sure you place them back down, because you would not want that to get caught on the bed of the machine. That will drag it away. And when there's stitches involved, that would be a disaster. So just make sure that's nice and flat. And then, I always keep that protective paper and just, use it until you're ready to stitch. And then, you protect your stabilizer. So another use of stretching stabilizer is for water-soluble stabilizer. And, I actually learned this recently in an event that we did, a virtual event that we did with our friends out in California, Kiki's Quilt Shack in Fresno, California. This is a beautiful lace butterfly that I have stitched on 2 layers of water-soluble stabilizer. And I do have some holes in it, so when I rinse this away, it's going to be a beautiful butterfly. But, when you take these out of the hoop, things like that, you have just this big sheet of stabilizer with a hole in it, right? It's very frustrating. It just feels wasteful. But what I've learned is I can use this excess to stiffen this. And why would I want to do that? Well, the first thing I want to do is remove this excess stabilizer because I don't want that mesh to be visible any longer. But I may want to keep this butterfly really stiff so that I could shape it and have it permanently positioned like it's flying, have its wings, lifted a little bit. So when after I rinse it, I place both this excess stabilizer and the rinsed butterfly in warm water or cold water and let it sit. And then this extra stabilizer is going to add stiffness to my lace. Now, if this is bridal lace and this is something you're going to wear, you probably wouldn't want to use that, but it's handy to keep this. I just keep these scraps in a plastic bag, and then when I'm ready or I have a need for the heavy stabilizer, that's what I do. So it's a great way to, not throw that stuff away, right? We get tired of throwing that stuff away. So recently, I know a lot of you have been asking about that vintage thread that we call it our vintage thread, but it's that heavy 15 weight chunky thread. I love this stuff. And I've showed it. Actually, this little hat that I just showed was stitched in that chunky thread. And it is Well, I used one of those. There we go. You can see how nice and chunky that is, right? It has the vintage fonts where it just does a heavy fill, and then the heavy whip stitched satin. Well, this is the thread that makes that come alive because it's 15 weight. It's not only for embroidery though, it's also really great for sashiko. So let's take a look. I went to my machine and I made some notes and I did some test samples. And when you do that, it's best to, change your stitch length, change your stitch width, and elongate decorative stitches to get a look that you like. So play with that and then make some notes and keep your sample and your notes pinned together. Like here, I have the stitch number for the sashiko is 07, and the serpentine is Q19, I think. I'm looking at this upside down, and I have my stitch length and stitch width. So what are the results that we get? Well, here's the serpentine. Isn't that pretty? And it just, it's a great way to add another layer of decoration to a printed fabric. Because if I use just a plain 40 weight thread, you really would not see this pretty serpentine because it's just too delicate, those threads. So that 15 weight really gives you that look. But for sashiko, for that hand quilting look, so the key to that is to use a monofilament thread in the needle, and here I have the clear, and here is the smoke. On this sample, I used clear, and you can barely see it. And I selected a stitch type on my machine that is hand quilting. That's the name of it, and it mimics sashiko. So what it does is it increases the tension very high on the needle to 7.0. And since I have the monofilament thread in the needle and my decorative thread in the bobbin, when it stitches, it pulls that bobbin thread to the top, and the monofilament is what you see in between those white stitches, which, is invisible. Oh, love that, right? Now, what happens if your machine doesn't have that setting? You can do the same thing. You would wind a bobbin with that decorative 15 weight heavyweight thread your needle with the monofilament thread, and listen to this. I use a top stitch needle 100 for this technique because I want to insert a large hole into my fabric. This is a quilt sandwich, so that the needle can pull the bobbin thread up. If I use a fine needle, like maybe you would think would be the right thing to do with monofilament thread, but it would get lost. This technique wouldn't work. So go ahead and use that heavy needle, that 100 top stitch, and that will help pull that bobbin up. So what else can you use that for? Well, I did a little embellishment on a denim jacket. I just started. I'm just kind of doing some, some free motion. Well, not free motion. The feed dogs were up, but just some simple stitching. And I'm going to fill this whole yoke with that. And this is part of a jacket that I did do a lot of vintage embroidery on before, but the front was really unadorned. So I thought, hey, well, that would be a great way to mimic that. And we have that color that looks exactly the same color that most denim garments are stitched in. And that's in the Earth Tones pack. So if you do a lot of denim and this is the color in your closet, that's the one for you. Okay, so what else? You know what else I really love it for? I love it for the E-stitch. So here you'll see I have a wool felt and a bamboo felt, the two layers, and I just added this triangular piece. This is just straight running stitches. I lengthened the stitch length to 4.0. Because of this chunky thread, you want to have some visibility. If they're too close together, those stitches, they just bunch up. That's no good. You want nice long stitches to let that chunky thread lay down. And then I did the E-stitch. Now, I have to tell you, I was at home with some limited sewing abilities, believe it or not. I have a machine in the shop and then, other tools here. So I wasn't able to get that absolutely perfect, but it's okay for me. And same thing here. And then on a scallop, nice way to finish. Imagine if you were working on a fleece jacket or something like that, it would be really a great way to finish that edge, or, fleece blanket, all those things. So aren't they fun? I just love that. I just love the sashiko. It's a really great look, and it's so popular on denim. You could do this same thing on dark navy with white stitching. Oh, it's just beautiful. And then, of course, the serpentine. Now, I didn't experiment with a lot of my decorative stitches. Some of them have too many satin stitches in them, and that would not be a good application for this heavy, chunky thread, because it would bunch up, and you only have so much control at the machine, at the sewing machine. In software, you can change everything, but we're talking regular sewing. So let's see what kind of questions you have. Let's head back over here. But they are fun, aren't they? Okay, so Fred and Bonnie wants, what size needle would you use? Oh, I just answered your question. And Kirsten, yeah, that heavier thread really does show up well. I'm all about letting everybody see what I'm doing. If I'm going to go to the trouble of stitching it, I most certainly want everybody to see what I did, right? And Judy Warren, you love the sashiko stitching. You've been wondering how to do it on the sewing machine. Well, that, you're not going to get that exact hand look, but doggone, it's pretty close. It really is. And Sandy, you use a notebook with screen protectors to store samples of stitching and ideas. Great idea. I used to do that. Today, I often take photos and then reserve, the samples like that, because my sample stack gets pretty high. Let's see. And Terry Freeman, the lower the number, the thicker the thread. You are right, Terry Freeman. Absolutely. 15 weight is very heavy. 40 weight is our normal embroidery weight thread. 60 weight is what we use for lettering, tiny lettering, micro lettering, for sure. So let's see. Misha, I know machine embroidery thread is mostly polyester, but how hard bad is it to use cotton thread? Well, you can use cotton thread, but polyester thread is very durable, and it's color fast, and it's stronger than cotton thread. So, that's my preference, but I know many people are, diehard true fiber people and, like cotton. I find cotton lints, and that really bothers me, because I don't like all that lint buildup in my bobbin case, in my on my sewing machine bed. I don't want that to happen. So Dory wants to know, can you piece water soluble stabilizer together with water soluble thread? Yes, you could. You most certainly could. Great idea, Dory. I love that. We're going to try that. And why wouldn't that work, right? Because that's the problem of sewing water-soluble stabilizer together, because if you use a regular thread, then that will be visible in your final stitch out. So the water-soluble would just rinse away. I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Dory Shandira. Appreciate that. Let's see, what other questions do we have? And Bonnie, you just got your vintage thread. You can't wait to give it a try. So remember, you're going to always lengthen your stitch length, right? Go long. It's kind of like working on bulky fabrics. You always lengthen your stitch length. So just keep that as a guideline. And everybody's talking to each other. I love that. Misha's saying hi to Sandy. Sandy saying hi to Misha. That's wonderful. It's great to meet friends online, isn't it? Yeah, let's see. Oh, so Carol, I think it's Carol. I keep calling her Carol. It's C. Lombard, very talented and creative stitchers. Yeah, there's all kinds of great information out there. And it's just wonderful. Let's see. And Tina said, you just recently read in your manual not to use thread below at 20. Oh, good thing you have multiple machines. Well, most certainly follow your manual, your sewing machine manuals, all the instructions that are in there. They do know best. I have multiple machines, and I have been known to, kind of push the limits on all of the machines. So I won't tell you to do it. it hasn't always worked out like I wanted it to, but sometimes it has. Yeah, sometimes it has. Let's see. And you're going to use it on your embroidery machine with the vintage software. Awesome. Well, that jacket that I showed here, I should go get that so you can see. That was all done in the vintage software. Isn't that great? And so that the corner tabs, that brownish material, is actually Craft Tex, that papery, kind of leathery material that's available. You know, that's what your patches on your Levi jeans are made out of, that same substrate. And then I just added those nice silver buttons in the center. But yeah, those designs are all in our vintage software. I love that vintage software. Big, bold results really fast, really, really fast. And let's see, could you use a glue stick to piece my stabilizers? I don't think so, Leslie. I don't think it would hold during the embroidery process. I would be very concerned about that. Now, what you possibly could do is, you know, use strips of adhesive stabilizer to put them together, you know, to put the pieces together. Experiment with that. See how that goes. But a glue stick, I don't think so. I don't think that would work. And Sandy, Misha, and you both belong to the OML embroidery group with Sue Brown. Wonderful. Yes. So I see your work all the time. You've both been doing the doors. It's just great to see that come along. And then, Dory, you want to know what pack is the jean color in? I'm pretty sure it's in the earth tones. And we have earth tones, brights, and pastels. And Sharon, just to be clear, yes, top stitch needle, number 100 with monofilament in the needle. And the bobbin, the colored thread, the chunky thread is where the 15 weight thread is. But on now that's just for Sashiko. Let's go back over so you can get a better look at those samples. I just want to make sure you understand. So because on my serpentine, I have it in the top and the bottom. So same 15 weight in both the top and the bottom. And on the Sashiko, the top thread is the monofilament and the bobbin thread is the 15 weight. So here's the wrong side of Sashiko. You can see how it's really one continuous line. You know, the monofilament barely is visible on the back. So that's how you get that hand quilting look, monofilament on the top, 15 weight in the bobbin. But for E-stitch and serpentine decorative stitches, you're going to have top and bottom 15 weight, both ends, you know, both sides. Okay. And I didn't match my threads, you know, these were tests. Who knows what I was doing, right? And sometimes I get lazy. I don't always want to stitch. I don't always, you know, take the time to change the bobbin when I should. Let's see. And Julie Walker, you say glue sticks don't work to piece water soluble. Oh, I know they definitely don't work to piece the water soluble together for sure. But I think I was wondering when our friend asked about using a glue stick, it was for a tearaway stabilizer. Let's see. And Kathy Winks, what have you done? You have tried piecing it with a water-soluble thread, and it works great, but the thread is a little pricey. Yeah, so it may not be economical. And that is really why we are patching stabilizer or finding a new use for it, right, is to save money because, you know, it does get pricey, and this is our hobby. But you know, you'd have to test that out. Of course, if you're just doing a quick line or two, it might be worth it. It might be worth it. It depends, right? Let's see. And Carolyn Brown, when you do the Sashiko stitch, you fill your bobbin with a heavier thread. Do you stitch upside down or do you stitch right side up? I stitch right side up. So, you know, as you're stitching, you're going to monofilaments in the needle, but behind your sewing, you know, right where the needle's penetrating, you're going to see that bobbin stitch starts to come up. And so you are definitely working from the right side. Yes. And do you slow your machine down when using vintage threads to embroider? Yeah, Tina, a lot of people do. I'd probably go down to about 600 stitches per minute on the vintage thread for sure. You just have to be careful what designs you are selecting, you know, because they do have to be digitized for that 15 weight thread. So our fonts, our vintage font collection is all digitized for that. And of course we have vintage software that has several hundred, I don't even know, maybe 1,200 designs, vintage designs that have been digitized specifically for that thread. And, you know, I keep talking about the 15, but we have the very same thread, that matte finish polyester in 40 weight thread, so that it matches. And here, I do have, I think, one of them over here. Here we go. So you can see here we have the 15 weight is right here. It's really thick, and then it's matching partner in 40 weight. So if you're working on, let's say you're doing a serpentine stitch like this, you'd want the 15 weight, but then if you want to do some satin leaves in the center, then you would use the same matching 40 weight. So they're also sold in the same collections, earth tone, brights, and pastels. So that's how that goes. Let's see. Okay, Marcia. Okay, there's and Jen, you want to know, it's made of polyester. Our vintage thread is all made of polyester. Very strong, does not lint, and it's color fast. That's what I love about it. Now, Marcia, she's stretching her skills there. She says she has dampened water-soluble stabilizer and added another piece. It holds and works well. It took a few tries, but now when she needs it, she can do that. So, Marcia, great advice. And maybe you all want to try that. I haven't tried it, so I can't say whether that works or not. Oh, and Sandy, you do the same thing, and it holds well. Well, good. Okay, well, we'll have to try that. I mean, I do often use, like when I use a topper, I'll dampen the corners to make it stick to the terry cloth towel if I'm doing a terry cloth towel, you know, out on the edges. And that works really well. Okay, Arlene, you're asking what vintage software am we referring to? Well, Dime makes a vintage software program that is just full of all these designs and this whole look. So if you go to Inspired by Dime, here, I'll put that in the comments so you can take a look at where that is. If you go to Inspired by Dime, you'll find out all about it. Hope I spelled inspired wrong. There you go. And so at that website is where you can find out all the information about our software programs. And the shirt that I'm wearing, this Hope, it was done in that vintage thread. So you can see it's an applique design, one of our vintage fonts. And I used a Kay Fawcett, you know, busy print, love his fabrics. And now you can see that outline is so bold. The effect is, you know, it's a raggedy, raw edge and it frays. I just love that vintage look, kind of fun. If you have Toolshed, you could take vintage for a test drive. That's right, Kirsten. So if you do have embroidery Toolshed, you can take vintage for a test drive. So that means you can go into the vintage software and play around and see what's in there. You can't save a design, but you can find everything that's in there. And if you don't know about embroidery Toolshed, it's a free download and you can use it. And how do you use embroidery Toolshed? Cindy West wants to know. Well, here, why don't I give you a demo? Bear with me a second while I bring up that program. Oh, that was not good. Okay, now I have to share my screen. And all right, there we go. Am I sharing? Yeah, in a minute. Okay. So here, I'll put a new screen up. And embroidery Toolshed, I'm going to go into the shopping cart and I'll just make embroidery Toolshed my default. So in embroidery Toolshed, I have the ability to size an embroidery design. I can copy and paste. I can print a template. So oh, I hate to do this in public, but okay, I'll just grab this embroidery design. I'll grab this embroidery design and take it over to the new screen and just give you a preview. So I can select that whole design and I can resize it. I could rotate it And you can see right now that I have a crosshair already in there, but I most certainly can print it with a crosshair. So you can go to File, Print Preview, and this shows you exactly where it will print. And, you know, that's your crosshairs, your center, and your vertical. I'm really struggling with that. Let's see. You recommend, Misha says you recommend 40 weight for stitch sketching designs or the lettering weight. I would say 15 weight because you really want that impact. You really want that impact. So I would do the 15 weight. Anyway, so Cindy West, I apologize. You know, I'm kind of failed here on my embroidery tool shed demo. I would need to be set up for that, have some pretty designs that would work well. But Embroidery Tool Shed is a free sizing and template printing in software that's available for anyone to download from dzgns.com or that Inspired by Dime website. And once it's loaded on your computer, you can open a design, you can look at it, copy, paste, merge, and rotate. So it's if you don't have any embroidery software, it's a great way to get started. And then if you continue to purchase our software, it all loads into Embroidery Tool Shed. Like for instance, we can pop back over and I can show you what I mean by that. So here down in the right-hand side, what we call the shopping cart area is all of the software that we make. And all of these are loaded within the tool shed. I can access my Perfect Embroidery Pro, which is what we call the mothership. It's where everything lives. My manual is here. There's a link to video tutorials on YouTube. It's wonderful. And Dory, do we have a YouTube demonstration? I imagine we do. I don't have a team member here helping me today, so I apologize for that. But on Facebook, we have an inspiration software group. Let me write that here so you can join in. And if you just ask to join inspiration software group on Facebook, you will you'll have access to, you know, all of the YouTubes. But if you just go to our, you know, inspirations, everything is over there. You'll find it. We have over 75 software videos on YouTube. And if you go to my blog, dzgns.com, you'll find tons of information there. And, oh, and look, I have somebody jumping in, Ashley Jones. She's going to grab the link for Embroidery Tool Shed YouTube. And if you just give her a moment, it is all, she'll provide that link. So just hang in there 1 minute, Dory. She'll provide that link, which is great. So every one of our software programs loads into this. And when you download the Embroidery Tool Shed, all of these will be there as demos. Mine are all active because, you know, obviously I use them all. So they're all active. I can't really show you the demo version, but it lets you play with it and use it and explore, but you can't save a design. Yeah. So anyway, here's Ashley. She's going to be with us in just a moment. She's digging around on YouTube, which we really appreciate. So what have you all been stitching on? That's what I want to know. I know some of you have been doing the dime doors, but, you know, what else are you stitching on? I'd love to know that because I'm always looking for inspiration. I want to make sure that what we do here is answering your needs. Like if you are working on something that you need some help on, we'd like to know for sure. So make sure in the comments you tell us what you're working on. Or if there's a topic that you need help on, I'd be happy to help for sure. That's what we do here. So, okay, here's Ashley. So YouTube, wow, that's a long one, but it's hot in the comments, I imagine, right on Facebook. And if you go there, the whole playlist is there and lots of different instructions, everything from lettering and sizing and working with artwork and changing artwork into applique and complex fills and, you know, everything. And Marcia, you love your dime. Oh, Tina, you're working on a t-shirt quilt. That's awesome. I love that. Haven't, I did one a long time ago and it wasn't that great. So maybe it's something I should get into again. Let's see. And Carolyn, you made drapes for your daughter using painter's drop cloth. That's pretty sweet. I'll bet that she loved that, right? And Lynn, you want to see designs for stitching on cardstock or how to digitize for cardstock designs? Okay. All right, we can handle that. Actually, this thread is great for that because it's so strong. And Misha, you're making, I need a good designs, wall hanging for Christmas gift. Good job. You're starting on that. Sharon, you're starting on Christmas tiles. Wow. Oh my goodness. You ladies are really working hard. And Judy, all you're doing is scrub caps and face masks for your local hospital. And Leslie, you said you made the best t-shirt quilt with your serger. Awesome. That's great. And Louisa, you're making masks for the Navajo Nation. Good for you. Good for you. And Kristen, lace flowers. Oh, you're saying Sharon's making lace flowers. Love that. And Sandy, you're working on a second dime door, one for the quilt and one to hang. You're also getting ready for the She Shed at Denton Sewing tomorrow. Yay, I'm glad you're going. Aine McCarthy, stellar educator of dime, she's going to be your educator. Oh, you're going to have a great time. And we're happy to get back out there, right? And gather a little bit. So I hope that you have an enjoyable time there for sure. That's great. And Linda, you're making baby quilts. Nice, 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 nice. Well, next week, ladies, I am going on vacation. I'm taking the week off, and it's actually going to be a staycation, which is fine, but I'm not going to do Facebook Live. Kind of need a little exhale for a couple of days, and then we'll be back on the 23rd, I believe it is, and I'm super excited to, come back all fresh and explore new things. And what are we talking about? I think we're going to jump into puffy foam, puffy ideas. And I've worked on some really fun cat pet stuff. So join us then. And in the meantime, stay healthy, keep stitching, and I'll see you back here on the 23rd. Thank you for joining us. Bye.